My name is Linda Kavuka, and I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I also work for an international non-profit organization called Students for Liberty that is registered in the United States. We work with young people in campus and recent graduates from around the world and teach them about free markets, individual liberty, leadership skills, giving them an opportunity to practice skills that they don't learn in school to help them be the best advocates for liberty that they could be for the world for the sake of a free society. My presentation today is going to give you land reform in Kenya, a history of the land case in Kenya, where we have come from and where we are today, hoping to give South Africa a lesson that to inform the country not to go ahead with the expropriation without compensation proposed law. Kenya is among the British Eastern Africa Protectorate, which means we have some places in the country where the colonial rulers eyed the land and moved the locals into settlement schemes. So we see first challenges of land issues being introduced into the country by the colonial masters, where land was taken from the African locals. And land was also one of the reasons why Kenya fought for independence. Post-independence, government adopted most of the colonial laws on land that introduced state ownership of land, coming from a system where communities own their own land. Land was moved to the center, owned by the government, and people will only receive rights to the land from the state. So the independence government adopted most of the statutes, which are many and complex, relating on land. And also we saw a system after independence where, due to population increase, communities were fighting over land and resources. We saw tribal clashes. We saw the government officers introducing land grabbing and corruption to the country that had never been witnessed before, due to over-empowering the government. And urbanization also brought the difficulties on land due to the dynamics where we have pressure in the urban areas. So these challenges and more led the country to create a national land policy, which didn't exist since independence, that looked at the challenges that people were facing, threat to land rights, there was no security of tenureship, and so some of the highlights the national land policy brought was creating categories of land. It also introduced ownership of administration of land by the National Land Commission instead of the Ministry of Government. We also saw a condensing of the former laws that were numerous and complex into only 3 statutes. And we also saw an insistence that what we call compulsory acquisition of the government to be just and equitable, to make sure that the government, when it wishes to take ownership of privately owned property, must compensate the owners in a just and equitable way, and accord the owners a right to access the court to contest that interest in the government in their land. And something else, we also saw the conversion of foreign ownership of land from 1,000 years of absolute proprietorship to 99 years in leasehold tenure. So Kenya has moved from a system of serious land challenges to having incorporated property rights into the constitution. The national land policy was adopted by the new Constitution of Kenya 2010, which has a specific chapter talking about land rights, which is Chapter 5. And also under the Bill of Rights, which is under Chapter 4, Article 40 speaks for property rights, ensuring that every person has a right to own land in any place in Kenya, and no person must be denied of their land rights unjustly by the government when exercising their laws. So we see a system where Kenya has come from a history of serious land issues that were introduced by colonialism and further made serious by corruption and land grabbing. So this law that is being proposed by South African Parliament on expropriation without compensation is only set to take the country backwards. It's only set to see us see Africa's rising star come down from its glory. South Africa is the largest economy in the continent and has a significant role it plays in the world. And if this law is passed, it will significantly impact the economy of South Africa negatively and it may lead the country into a serious case of recession. This country will be not what we know today. It will be a sad day in Africa and the entire world if the expropriation without compensation law is passed. Our message to the South African people is not to accept this and to fight for their rights and to make sure that land rights are held high, that property rights are ensured for all people in South Africa, whether a citizen or a foreigner.